back, folks. I am loving my time here in Vegas. The city is very clean. Traffic's great, even on the strip for a downtown area. That's not much congestion. Uh, no potholes, no shitty graffiti on road signs, and like these mountain ranges, oh my goodness. But I'm gonna take you through a session I played at the Venetian last night. One of the worst 2-5 games I have ever played. I rarely leave a game, no matter how bad it is. That one I left. A little bit on the card dead side, but couldn't get many hands in. You're going to 3-bet, everyone's going to fold. It was just mostly regs. Just wasn't a good game, but we still got a few good hands in there. And I don't know where I'm going to play today. I'm probably just going to spin a wheel and see what happens, but I'll take you through these hands and I'll see you guys shortly. Hello and welcome. This is the Venetian. We are playing some 3-5 and I am in the game for 1,000. We're playing against a player who I just lost a flip with, King Queen. My King Queen versus his pocket jacks. He won the flip. It was for like 120 bucks, but that's okay. He now limps. I re-raise it up to 25. Folds back around. He's the only player that calls. So we're going heads up to a flop, which is quite nice. King Queen 6 rainbow. Checks it to me with my gut shot and overall range advantage. I'm definitely going to be betting here, so I fire it out for 25. My opponent makes the call. Off to the turn, which is the 5 of diamonds. Pretty much a brick, so when he checks it over, I'm just going to keep firing here. I fire out for $80. My opponent pretty quickly makes a call. Off to the river, which is the 6 of clubs. And now my opponent leads out, and I think I folded a bit too quick here. This player won't call a 6 on the turn. It'll be very rare if they'll call a queen on the turn. I just see them calling a ton of flop bets and folding a ton on the turn. Like almost every single hand he's involved in, and he's involved in like 40-50% of hands, is call a flop bet, fold turn. So I reckon he's folding some pretty strong hands on the turn, and I actually really like a hero call here. I know we blocked Jack 10, which really sucks, but like he's just not leading out with the king here. He's just not leading out with anything here. I folded way too fast because I was just going to check back, and when they lead out, it's just like, oh, I don't have to bluff. But yeah, I think we might actually be good here, but I snap folded in the moment, which is not wrong either. I think it's totally fine, and we're stuck a little bit. On to the next hand. Alright, picking up the pocket jacks under the gun, I raise things up to 15, a player in the middle calls, and then the small blind, a very good reg, squeezes to 75. Folds back to me, I randomize 25% 4-bet and 75% call, landed on call, so we call, and the hijack also gets involved. Off to a really bad flop of ace, queen, 5, 2 diamonds, no backdoor flush draw, 2 overcards. Probably just going to fold to a bet, but small blind now checks it over. I'm happy to check this back, and hijack checks as well. Off to a turn, which is the beautiful jack of clubs. We hit this beautiful one-outer, and now small blind fires out for 125. I think raising here is definitely okay, but our range is just so narrow on this turn card to have a raise after we didn't bet to, so I think it's easier just to play my entire range as a call here. All my flush draws, all my hands that now made 2 pair, just everything as a call. It kind of feels like he's got like a weak ace here or pocket kings, something like that. So I just don't want to blow him off that and give him a chance to value on himself. So I make the call and hijack also calls. So now we're off to the river, which is the 3 of diamonds. I don't like this card. I think hijack is most likely to have a flush. Small blind would probably bet a flush on the flop. Just, like 3 bets, see an ace queen high board, two big cards and a small one with their flush draw. It's almost everyone's going to bet there. Now small blind fires out for 600, pot size bet. And I know I'm first I have to think about hijack. I look over at hijack and he's staring up the sky like this, which is usually not a good sign. It usually means they've got something really big. But then he notices me looking at him and he starts talking, and then he looks at his hand, and now he looks like he's done with the hand. So that feels a bit better. Then I start thinking about small blind, what can he have? I just don't think live players are checking back flush draws in a 3-bet pot like this out of position. I just don't think they are. This feels like pocket kings with a diamond, king queen with a king of diamonds. There's quite a few bluffs here that he could have, and not too many flush combos. Like there's king queen of diamonds, which definitely plays this way, and there would be, I guess, king jack of diamonds, which I think would bet the flop. So I really just think he's either got, king queen or queen jack of diamonds here for his flushes, and that's pretty much it. So my hand's quite strong as well, so I make the call, hijack folds, and small blind shows the king jack of diamonds. Wow, really well played by my opponent. Did not expect to see that ever showing up in a live game. Really nice for him to have some nut flush checkbacks there. Yeah, that one is a very unfortunate run out. To hit the one outer on the turn, then river the flush, that is a bad run out. Alright, let's try win a hand, shall we? We pick up 7-5 suit in the low jack. Recreational player has limped, and I definitely want to be ISOing quite wide, so I raise up to 25. Hijack calls, small blind calls, and then the limper folds. So, not what I intended, but we're 3 ways to a flop, which comes down king 7-5 2 clubs. We flop bottom 2 on a pretty draw heavy board. Checks to me, I start with a small bet of 30, and only the small blind makes the call. Off to the turn, which is the 3 of hearts. SPR is looking around 4, and this is pretty much a blank. 6-4 suited does get there, but can't be scared of that. So when he checks it to me, I fire out a pot-sized bet of 145. My opponent doesn't think for long, makes a call. We're up to a river, which is the beautiful 10 of hearts. Pretty much a blank. Backdoor flush does get there, but he's got it, he's got it. So when he checks it to me, I move all in, and he thinks for a minute or two before tossing in the call. We are good here and picking up a pretty nice pot. In this hand, we are playing against the same reg that checked back the nut flush draw. He has made it 15, and I look down at ace-3 suited in the cutoff. You can raise, you can call, probably can't fold. This time my randomizer lands on the 50% raise. Exciting, so I make it $50. Folds back around to middle position, who thinks for a little bit, and starts kind of raising chips and makes it 160 to go. 5 bet is out of the question here. I don't really 5 bet too often, but ace-3 suited is a little bit too weak for that. You want to use your ace-5 suiteds very sparingly. And then, I don't know. I haven't really learned 5 bet ranges, but we are really deep. 300 big blinds deep. I'm in position with a suited ace, so I'm going to toss in a call here against most players at 2-5 and 1, but this player definitely has a 4 bet bluffing range, so I think we have the equity needed to call. So I make the call. We're off to a flop. It's quite good for my range. It's 9-9-5, 2 hearts, 1 spade. This board's going to be a little bit better for me, considering I did 3 bet pre. I'm not going to have too much connectivity in this board, but it's going to be a bit better for me. He now bets out quarter pot here for $80, and that's okay. It's a board that's going to miss both of us quite a bit. And I'm just going to float here with my overcard and backdoor nut flush draw. Pretty standard so far. Off to the turn, which is the 6 of diamonds. My opponent now checks it over. And I just think most of his 4 bet bluffs are not going to like this. He's going to have some like king 9, queen 9, those kind of hands. And it's going to suck when we run into those. But I just think having just this no equity bluff here is going to work enough for the time that it's going to be okay. Because I'm not going to be betting my flush draws here. I'm not going to be betting my 6-7 suited here. Because if I bet and get jammed on, it's just so brutal. So I think just using no equity hands here as my bluffs is a little bit better. I don't know about my hand selection, but I'm going to size up so I can get it all in by the river. This looks about 2/3 pot, so I fired a bet of 350. My opponent thinks and thinks and thinks, and then lets it go. Nice, we are picking up a pretty nice pot there. Alright, we're playing quite short-handed. I think we're 4-handed now. It's 1 good reg, and then 2 mediocre ones. It's not a great table. But I raise king 5 suited in the hijack. It might be more than 4-handed, it might be 5-handed at this point, and only the big blind makes the call. So we're heads up to the flop, which comes down 9-4 deuce 2 clubs. Amazing. He checks it to me. I'm going to size up here quite a bit, as it's a board I'm not going to bet too often. So I make it 25. My opponent check raises to 90. I just don't believe this. There's no 2 pairs available, really. There are a few sets, but yeah, I'm just going to float here. Plus, we have a flush draw. You can't go wrong. So I make the call. We're off to the turn, which is the 10 of spades. My opponent checks it over. It kind of just looks like he was making a play on the flop with a total airball. So I'm going to bet, but it doesn't have to be too big here. Normally, this would be around a $230-ish, maybe $240 bet that I would throw it here, but I just don't think he has anything, so we can size down a bit with my bluffs. So I make it 145. My opponent makes the call, so it looks like he might have something here, maybe some 10-9 or something, but river is the 6 of hearts. He checks it over, and since he called turn, I'm just not going to fire this river. Having the 5 isn't a great card. Having clubs is really bad, so I check it back. My opponent shows the 4 deuce suited. Yeah, these regs are something else. Checking back 2 pair on the turn. Really tricky plays. Definitely better than the regs I've been playing against in America up until now. Okay, we're still playing 4 or 5 handed, and it folds around to me. We're not doing chop pots. But I got pick a pocket 10's the small blind. I raise things up to 15. My opponent now raises it up to 50. I made a mistake here. This is like a clear 4-bet, blind versus blind, but live games, players are not going to be 3-betting pocket 6s here like they should be, right? They're not going to be 3-betting ace 8 off or whatever you're supposed to be doing blind versus blind. This is like a strong range. This is like an under the gun versus mid position range that he's 3-betting. But I don't know, I just wasn't thinking about that at the time. I'm just thinking blind versus blind, so I throw in the 4-bet to 150. I don't like this at all, and my opponent makes a call. Off to a flop, which comes down Jack 8, 2 clubs. I think we're going to do quite a bit of checking here, so I check it over. My opponent snap checks back, which is kind of concerning. You know, if he had ace high, I think he would slow down a bit and make it seem like he had something, but we're off to a turn, which is the 3 of hearts. I'm a little bit worried here that he could have pocket jacks, pocket queens, maybe an 8. Like, there's so few hands that he 3-bets here that I'm beating. It's pocket 9s, really, and ace highs. But I do want to get some protection, some value from those ace highs, so I fired a bet of 125, and my opponent makes a call. Off to a brutal river, the ace of clubs. I check it over. My opponent fires out a bet of about half pot, 250. There's just no way I'm good here. There's no way. Like, I try to convince myself that he could possibly have king queen here, but no, he just never does. So I make the fold, and my opponent did indeed have the pocket jacks. Like I said, go back pre-flop. These players just aren't 3-betting proper ranges, blind versus blind. Yeah, that should have just been a call pre-flop and then call the flop and check fold turn, but oh well. On to the next hand. The very good reg is raised up to 15. I'm on the button queen jack suited. Could 3-bet, could call. I decide to flat this time. Folds back and folds around. So we go to a flop of king jack 7, 1 diamond. Pretty good board. My opponent fires out for $20, about half pot. No decision here. I make the call. We're off to the turn, which is the 3 of diamonds. Pick up a flush draw to go along with our middle pair. My opponent doesn't slow down either. He fires out a 2/3 bet of $50. Once again, there's no decision here. Just have to call. River is the 8 of spades, so 10-9 does get there. Break my flush draw, and now my opponent fires out for about 40%. It's a bit small, so we definitely can start calling some of our queen jacks here. Well, I think it's close. Ace jack, I would just call this off every time. But queen jack, I'm like a little bit... I think it's on the cusp here. So I decided that having diamonds would be good, because I don't think this player would bluff miss diamonds. So... yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I think about it, but I decided to go for the raise here. You know, if you're picking a river raise as a bluff, you kind of want to do one step lower than what you can call profitably. I think it's close. I think we might be able to call this hand. But I decided this time to raise. I make it 250 to go, put my opponent in the tank, and he says he nearly snap called because he thought it was 150. Which isn't what you want to hear, which means he doesn't have a bluff. He's probably got a king now. He's thinking it over. Takes about a minute, maybe 2, and decides on a fold. We get that one through, picking up a pretty big $500 pot here. Alright, building our stack back up a little bit. We got the king-queen offsuit. I raise things up to 15, and only the big blind makes the call. So we're heads up to a flop of 10-9-3 rainbow. Checks it over. I think this hand is fine in our check back range, so I check it back. We're off to the turn, which is the 4 of hearts. Opponent now fires out for 20. Still got 2 overs and a gut shot, so I make the call. We're off to the river, which is the 3 of clubs, pairing the card. My opponent now fires out for 50. And I don't know. I think a lot of his 10x is going to want to start checking back here. And there's a lot of misdraws. You know, hearts missed, 8-7 missed, 5-6 missed. Yeah, I get a little curious and I make the call. My opponent seems unwilling to show, but then tables the 5-6 off. Make a successful king high hero call. These games are not easy. Final hand, I pick up ace-7 offsuit and I raise things up to $20. Only my opponent in the big blind makes a call, so we go to a flop of the queen jack 7 rainbow. Checks it over to me. Uh, Probably gonna want to stab here at some frequency, so I randomized like 50-50 and landed on bets, so I bet this out for $30. My opponent makes the call. So off to the turn, which is the king of spades. My opponent checks it, and my hand's now just really weak. We do have a gut shot. We do lock pocket sevens, which is the only set my opponent can have, so I think this is a pretty decent bluff combo. So I fired up for $100, pot size bet. My opponent really quickly makes a call. I am really worried about 10-9 now, but we're up to the river, which is the three of clubs, a blank. My opponent checks it over, and yeah, I really didn't want to bluff here. I just thought he had 10-9 suited every time. He's been playing really tight, really snug, and I just think he's got 10-9 suited every time, but that's not really how you're supposed to think about poker hands, so I just thought his range was really strong, so I just narrowed down my bluffs and made them as few as possible. I don't have enough 10x here to bluff. Like, I just don't have really any that play this way. Like, King 10 is not going to bet $100 on the turn. My Jack 10 isn't going to bet the flop. My Queen 10 is probably not going to bet the flop all too often. And I don't really have... I have 10-7 suited, which would be like the best combo, but I don't raise that every time. So I think blocking the nuts is nice. I think blocking the only set he can have is nice. And his range is going to be something like Queen Jack, King Queen at some frequency, and then just like a lot of like pair plus straight draw hands, like the Jack 10, Queen 10, King 10, so maybe it's not good to have a 10. I don't know. He's also going to have pocket sevens and 10-9 suited. So I just decided this hand was too good to pass up on the bluff, and I fire up at 300. My opponent doesn't think for long, makes the call. My opponent did indeed have the 10-9 suited. I really didn't want to bluff that river. Really didn't want to. But with that, I played a few more hands, racked up my chips, headed home. That is it for me at the Venetian. Tough session, really tough session. The reg that checked back the nut flush that hand, really good player. He's the second player on the trip that I thought, wow, that is an excellent poker player. So nice to see, and it is fun to battle it out. But I was in the game for 1800, out for 1120 for a loss of 680. Put the bankroll numbers down there. That is it. I am gonna get some breakfast and head over to, I don't know where, but you'll find out in the next video, won't you? See you guys later.